2020 coup in Mali. All the ECOWAS member states can claim that they were running a democratic system of government. Albeit maybe flawed of one form or the other, but at least there was no military dictatorship. So, where did the rain start beating ECOWAS? It is this problem of third term. And incidentally, they have just held an election in Cote d'Ivoire, and then Alassane Ouattara has claimed victory. One will say that it started from there. Alassane Ouattara in 2016 decided to reset the constitution of Cote d'Ivoire. And then once they do that, they tell you that the tenure that they have served will no longer count, that they will now begin afresh. So whereas he thinks he's running a second term, the others are saying that it's actually a fourth term. So the third term syndrome was what started, the bug was what started the retrogression of democracy in the region. And so when that has happened, the Guinea, Alpha Conde emulated that, even carried out his own referendum and election during COVID, okay? And resulting in even the chairman of the Electoral Commission dying, and some one or two government officials, senior government officials died. They were infected by COVID because this man wanted to railroad that kind of change that he wanted to get a third term. But we have seen where it landed him. In Mali, the issue was that the man who was there, IBK, had promised, he has done what first term, was going to the second term, and had promised to fight insurrection, to fight terrorism, to fight insecurity. The people who, Assimi Goita and others, his colleagues, said that he has failed. Okay, that is where we are. So, but so we have to take both factors into consideration. One is that there has been insecurity, there have been terrorism. They were, this issue of separatist movements in Mali, the Tuaregs and others. But so the democracy has actually come under threat, not just in the region, it's across board. You can see America, where it is going with President Trump in 2016 and then now in 2023. So, and other countries, even as we speak, the Tanzania that's been was being praised when the lady Semuna took over power from when the president died from COVID. There is repression there, and there's a report that about 500 people had died when the security forces tried to put down protests. In the case of ECOWAS, it is this issue of coming, the issue of not managing not obeying, respecting the protocols, respecting the legal text that has been the major problem. The politicians, they now, nobody actually now thought the colleagues, the presidents or leaders do not even have the political will to check themselves. There used to be what you call peer review and others, that when your colleague is taking some decisions that will have untoward consequences, you should warn them. But what has happened is that it appears the leaders are now in cahoots. They are now legitimatizing the fact that you don't call me to order and I will not call you to order. So they were doing, is a padi kind of a club that to the extent that the electorate or those who are supposed to be governed, the citizens are now, the will of the citizens no longer matter. It was now the issue of those in power doing what they want, impunity, corruption, cronyism, suppression of opposition, and then there is shrinking the democratic space. Nobody can question whatever it is they are doing. So you asked about some, because everything is not totally bad. There have been some cases where you have some shining examples. You mentioned Senegal. Yes, Senegal. Remember Macky Sall, when he was there, he wanted to, even the same Macky Sall that led the movement against Abdullah Wad. Abdullah Wad wanted to do a third term, but Macky Sall, as president of the National Assembly and all that, said no, that Abdullah Wad never succeeded, so he went. The same Macky Sall wanted to repeat the same thing until the opposition, in fact, the man who won the election, Jamai Faye, and his colleague, Sonko, were actually clamped in jail, before they came out, and then an election was held, and Jamai Faye won, and they are there. Macky Sall couldn't get his way. So, but what happened there? It was the determination and commitment of civil society that really, and the citizens. And that's why one is suggesting that citizens should not just stand by and watch the leaders do what they want to do, because power, they say, resides with the people. The same people are now, for instance, when you are organizing a referendum, who did it recently? They gave almost 90%. They said people had given 90% for you to change. I think it was in Guinea. Yes, Guinea. The man who took over, the military person there, Dumbuya, who wants to run for the presidency, even though ECOWAS text and AU instruments are against that. They are saying that whenever you have taken power unconstitutionally, you cannot benefit from the next transition cycle of election. To change that, Dumbuya and his people put the question to vote in the referendum and got a yes. So you will say, when now he takes over, when there is an election and he wins, and he begins now to oppress the people, the same people will be complaining. So at times the people are also complicit in what is happening. So I haven't finished with the bright stars in the region. Apart from Senegal, which is recent, Cape Verde, like you also mentioned, was also, they held their own election in, I think, in 2021. And there are so many things that the region can learn from. Of course, it was former Portuguese territory, but they have also worked on their own constitution to make sure that, in fact, it is so amazing the kind of, you will say, well, it's a country of a very small population, less than 600,000, but they respect, the thing is to respect the rules. The Constitution says that nobody can go for third term consecutively. If you have done two, you have to leave a gap of 5 years before you come back. And nobody has been able to do that, because by the time you do it, knowing that our leaders are always in their advanced ages, nobody has done. By the time you have done 2 terms, you can't, and another 5 years by somebody else, you are no longer qualified. But that is one of the key things. The other one is that political parties are rather, playing their role in the background. It is individuals who campaign for elections, whether it is president or prime minister. It is after the election, if you now win, and then this is to reduce the influence of money. Of course, you can't do it totally, but at least substantially. You are not supposed to be spending a lot of money. It's only the little amount you have that you spend. No person can give you too much money because there is a regulation about that. And it is when you now get state subvention based on the number of votes you have won in the election. So it's after they have done the audit of the political parties and everybody. So a political party can support, but not bringing money to support a candidate. The candidate is there on his own. And do you know what? Both the president and the prime minister of Cape Verde are living in apartments. They don't own their own. It's not a question. In fact, their salary is less than 3,000 or thereabout, okay, that they are collecting. And they are moving. I was there for that election, you find that the prime minister and the president were going to the same, and the ordinary people, they go to the same restaurant. I think it was the prime minister or the president came when we were having lunch something, and then they were telling me, haven't you seen the president? There was no protocol. You didn't find all these convoy of security. They move with at least maybe two vehicles. That is a way of cutting down governance, the expenses of governance, which other countries can emulate. In other places, you find a convoy moving as if, and you will tell your people to tighten their belts, but you are having almost 50 or more vehicles that are being fueled, and people, hangers on are there. You are using state resources. And then another one is the huge, the number of ministers or, what the personal assistants or senior our advisors. You don't need all that to have a good, in fact, in Ghana, for instance, under the last president, they had about 100 ministers under Nana Akufo-Addo. And then people were saying that he was setting a record. What is it? You are trying to distribute, political patronages. You can help your people, whoever you want, your friend or your family members, in a different way. Not come and I have used the government fund. I have seen a situation now, okay, in Nigeria. There is this report of a minister taking his children to a summit paid for by the state. These are not things that, meanwhile, they are telling Nigerians to tighten their belts, that there is austerity, there is pain after pain, there will be gain. But there has to be that not only being said, but being seen to practice what you preach. Because the same thing is a case of do what I say, but not what I do. And it can work that way. The other country of example is Liberia. Liberia, the lady there held the head of Electoral Commission, Davidata, conducted in 2023 or so, conducted a very, what many considered, transparent election. And then the incumbent lost. And then there was this issue of, because in Africa, not just in West Africa, politicians do not know how to, they can do everything. The election for them is do or die. They want to win by all means. So they know how to win, but they never know how to lose. They don't want to, losing is out of, so it is question of, is either I have it or, I destroy it. That is not what election is. Just one of the ways of ensuring that leaders who do not perform are changed during in an election cycle. That is why democracy is different or is preferred to other forms of government like dictatorship, autocracy and all that. Because it provides you with that opportunity to change the leaders when they do not perform. But what has happened is that these leaders, want to sit tight. They do everything to make sure that they do not leave. You see, Cameroon, where with somebody who is almost 93 years, and they have told you he went for the 8th term for Biya. And then you wonder, what is he bringing to the table again, other than maybe dying on the throne, as it were? Because Africans don't resign, they don't leave. They are mostly either pushed or they die in office. So that bug has also is biting West Africa. And so these are the 3 examples I will call out. You have mentioned the 2, Senegal, Cape Verde, and then Liberia. But all the other elections that have been held have always had issues, including that of Nigeria. You are aware, So it is why? Because, and they're always ending up in court. That's another issue. The influence or the role that the judiciary is playing in elections in Africa, and not just West Africa. What has happened is that many people no longer have confidence in the electoral umpire, because they feel that the electoral feel that their votes will not count. So there is that party, and then the ruling party makes sure that they do whatever it takes to make sure that they remain in power. Okay? So that is part of the problem, that the ruling, those government in power, they do not, you have seen the issue of somebody who came forth in one of the elections, governorship elections, coming, the Supreme Court said he was now the first, and then he became the governor, and so on and so forth. So a lot of contradictory, and I'm not the only one saying it. The former vice president, a lawyer, senior advocate of Nigeria, Yemia Sibajo, he called the Supreme Court out recently to say that they issue contradictory rulings, which is not helping democracy in Nigeria, at least. You find courts of the same jurisdiction issuing different judgments on a particular issue, and you'll be wondering how, what will that be if not reinforcing the allegation that the judiciary or the judges or the courts are now becoming compromised or have been captured. Somebody said that both the legislature, there is supposed to be division of power between the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. But in some places, what these politicians want is that all of them, the executive will want to control all the other 2. So that whenever, in Senegal, that was what was happening. They hold the election, or where? Togo. They held the election boycotted by the opposition, and what the people you have in the parliament are now mostly for the ruling party, so that the party in power, the president, can have a free ride. If he brings any motion or any bill, it's a free passage. Or before, it's a case of before the government, the president will say jump, the parliamentarians will say, how high do you want us to jump, sir? So that is what you call rubber stamp parliament. And then the judges are, like I said, are not helping matters, the judiciary, by these contradictory and decisions that they are giving. So much so that the citizens are now losing confidence in government institutions as a whole, in the executive, the ministers, in the legislature, and then the judiciary. So you have to restore this confidence, this trust. Government has to, so that people will believe in government, to believe. And then in the electoral process, to know that when an election is conducted, that is the true will of the people that will prevail, that the voters, the votes of the registered voters will count and be counted. And so the process is one thing. We have seen some improvement with the introduction of technology, electoral voting, and then you have to follow it up with a collation, that everything will now be done in a way that it will remove the suspicion of, corruption. Okay, Nigeria, in the case of Nigeria, the 1923 election was so contested. Most of them, in fact, since 1999, that the country transited from military rule to civilian rule. Most of them, except only the 2015 election that didn't go to the Supreme Court. Otherwise, all the others were settled by the Supreme Court. And then it's a dangerous practice when you now you are sourcing the election results are no longer determined through the ballot box. It is now the judiciary, some judges sitting, with all due respect to their lordships, will now sit and begin to tell you that no, what happened in the polling booth or in the electoral units does not count. It's what we decide. That is a dangerous trajectory for democracy in Africa and then in West Africa. So there are just a few bright lights to mention, and that is not good for the democratic principle or growth of nascent democracy that we have in West Africa, in the ECOWAS region. This is the challenges I have mentioned. It is about constitutional coups, electoral coups, rigging, corruption by the leaders, suppression and oppression of opposition, and then no respect for human rights, and then they are not delivering. You can see that apart from one or two of them, they cannot, people will say they are not seeing the effect of democracy, the dividends. It can't show, because the people, there's no food on the table, their children cannot go to school. There is unemployment, high unemployment rate, especially of the youths. And that is why you have crime all over the place. There is no infrastructure. There is no, the hospitals are under, the hospitals, health system is underfunded and under-resourced, and you find now that some of the leaders, political leaders they go abroad for treatment. When how can somebody who has spent about 8 years in office still be going abroad to go for medical? Why can't they build all those infrastructure or those health facilities that they have abroad in Nigeria? I keep mentioning the case of South African legend, Nelson Mandela, Madiba. Madiba died, he was in, we didn't hear that he went anywhere for treatment. He died in his country, in South Africa. He served only one term. After being incarcerated in jail for 26 years or so, he came out, and because he was not greedy, he just served for 4 years and said, no, let the others come over. That is not the example that many African countries have refused to emulate because of greed, because of avarice, because of corruption, and because of the fact that they have hangers on. They have a lot of psychophants around them, telling them what they want to hear. Because that's another issue. Most of these people are only listening to those who tell them what they want to hear. The moment you begin to talk truth to power, you become the enemy. You are called an enemy of the state. And that is the part of the problem, that they are not allowing alternative views. They are not listening to those who, You cannot be preaching, lend your country. You are living a different lifestyle, very opulent lifestyle, and you're asking the people to remain in abject poverty. They have weaponized poverty. That some of the electorate, the citizens, when they see just a little amount of money, they can do anything for you. But the bottom line is that the people, the citizens, they have to live up to their responsibility. It is not by taking power by violence, no, but there are examples where you have seen Madagascar. Madagascar civilians were the ones on the street for how many days, how many weeks before the military came in. You saw Burkina Faso in West Africa, ECOWAS member. In 2014, President Blaise Compaoré ascended to power after a coup in which it was reported that he killed his friend, Thomas Sankara, in 1987. But in 2014, the Burkinabes felt they were tired of him because he was no longer doing what he promised he was doing. And they chased him. About 2 million people were on the street. You cannot kill, because I noticed that the fear, because of these leaders, they weaponize the state power, state apparatus, the military, the security apparatus. They use them to suppress the people. They kill. But the people must know that there is no struggle. If there is going to be, nobody surrenders, gives you your right. You have to fight for your right. Unfortunately, people must die, but they cannot kill everybody. So if they come out en masse to say, no, we are tired, because what is happening, what is keeping them are just the psychopaths, like I say, who are telling the leaders the falsehood, lying to them that everything is okay when it is not. So by the time the mass of the people, critical mass of the people come out to speak with one voice, not pandering to the, because that's the other thing, ethnic, religious, or tribal sentiments. Once you come out come out without talking, because at times you say he's a corrupt, but he's a thief, but he's our thief, he's our brother, he's our son. That is what the politicians are also using to divide the people. The people must rise against these primordial sentiments and put in power those that can deliver, and then that they can hold them to account when they do not deliver.